Good day everyone, we meet again. Today, we will march on to discuss about environmental auditing. My name is Suhaila Abdul Hamid, your lecture tutor. Environmental audit is the sixth topic in the Environmental Management course SBEV 3103. Let me introduce to all of you the learning. At the end of this lecture, all of you are able to define environmental audit, explain the importance of environmental audit, differentiate between environmental audit and environmental accounting, conduct environmental audit, and describe the benefits of environmental audit. What is environmental audit? Environmental audit is actually a fact-finding work. Environmental auditing is used to investigate, understand, and identify. These are used to help improve existing human activities with the aim of reducing the adverse effects of these activities on the environment. An environmental auditor will study an organization's environmental effects in a systematic and documented manner and will produce an environmental audit report. As shown in the slide, auditing is in general a methodical examination involving analysis, tests, and confirmations of procedures and practices whose goal is to verify whether they comply with legal requirements, internal policies, and accepted practices. According to the ISO 19011, an audit is defined as an evidence-gathering process. Remember, audit must be objective, impartial, and independent, and the audit process must be both, as mentioned, systematic and documented. There are also other definitions available, although the above definition is still seen as the industry standard. The key concepts of environmental audit are as follows. Verification means audits evaluate compliance to regulations or other set criteria. Systematic audits are carried out in a planned and methodical manner. Periodic audits are conducted to an established schedule. Objective information gained from the audit is reported free of opinions. Documented notes are taken during the audit and the findings recorded. Finally, management tool. Audits can be integrated into the management system such as a quality management system or, in this topic, environmental management system. Why environmental auditing is important to an organization? Environmental auditing will assist organizations in terms the Environmental Quality Act EQA 1974 of Malaysia specifies requirements on environmental audit as contained in Section 33A Environmental Audit noted below. The Director General may require the owner or occupier of any vehicle, ship or premises, irrespective of whether the vehicle, ship or premises are prescribed under Section 18 or otherwise, to carry out environmental audit and to submit an audit report in the manner as may be prescribed by the Minister by regulations made under this Act. Now, what is the difference between environmental audit and environmental accounting as in topic 5? Environmental audit is designed to help organizations fulfill their managerial commitment and control of environmental practices, complying with environmental regulations and company policies, whereby environmental accounting is the practice of incorporating principles of environmental management and conservation into reporting practices and cost-benefit analysis. It allows accountants to report on the economic impact of those decisions to stakeholders so as to allow for proactive decision-making about processes that simultaneously meet environmental regulations while adding to the bottom line. In summary, we can say that accounting is subset to environmental audit. If you look at this slide on the environmental audit versus environmental accounting, we can see that environmental accounting is one element in the environmental management system. Actually, it is allocated at the stage 4 during system establishment and implementation. And for the whole lot, will be going through the environmental audit to check on the environmental performance of the organization as well as compliance to legal requirement and also the effectiveness of the standard itself. Environmental auditing must be understood by management as a systematic and objective process of evaluating a company's facilities and activities for a period designed to verify the compliance with environmental regulations, internal policies, and accepted practices, evaluate the effectiveness of environmental management system in place, identify and assess any reasonably foreseeable risks associated with hazardous conditions attributable to operations and prevent or mitigate such risks. An environmental audit is one of the key tools and an integral component of the ISO 14000 series standards for the EMS. The series of standards ISO 14010, ISO 14011, and ISO 14012 are replaced by ISO 19011 in year 2002. ISO 19011-2002 provides guidance on the principles of auditing, managing audit programs, conducting either quality management system audits or environmental management system audits, as well as guidance on the competence of quality and environmental system auditors. It is applicable to all organizations needing to conduct internal or external audit or to manage an audit program. So please remember, from now onward, we are actually referring to the ISO 19011 year 2002, the guidelines for quality and or environmental management system auditing, where basically in this ISO 19011-2002 provide a clear explanation of the principles of management system auditing, provide the guidance on the management of audit programs, guidance on the internal or external audits conducted in the organization, advice on the competence and evaluation of the auditors. In general, environmental audit systems are conducted using two approaches, which are internal audit and external audit. In reference to the environmental management system, there are three major types of environmental audits known as liability audit to determine whether or not a company is in compliance with applicable laws and regulations, management audit to determine whether or not a company is meeting its stated goals, objectives, and policies, in a specific issue area or waste reduction. Let us proceed into how to conduct environmental audit. There are three phases in conducting an environmental audit: pre-audit, audit, and post-audit. Pre-audit deals with preparations prior to the audit on-site. The work includes communicating with the site personnel on the audit, obtaining background information about the site, defining the scope and intent of the audit, determining the type of audit, selecting audit team members, preparing the necessary equipment, for example, audit checklists, personal protective equipment, and other audit tools, making preparations on logistic, accommodation, and transportation if needed, and sending a letter of notification to the site to confirm the audit. Next is the audit itself, which comprises of 5 events in sequence. They are: firstly, opening meeting. This is the first formal event at the site and should be attended by the audit team and the management of the auditee. Usually, the top management will address the audience first, and the audit team leader will then inform the management on the agenda and the methodology of the audit. Secondly, familiarization tour. The audit team members are accompanied by key personnel of the auditee to visit the site briefly in order to be familiar with the nature of operations and the environmental concerns. It should be noted that this is not site inspection. This event is not needed if the audit team members are familiar with the site. Thirdly, interviewing the knowledgeable persons. This is the essence of the on-site audit, whereby key personnel are interviewed to obtain facts in response to the audit questions. Fourthly, verification. The facts obtained from the knowledgeable persons are verified. There are 3 techniques of verification: document review. This exercise examines the manual procedures, work instructions, records, and supporting documents. Verification interviews involves interviewing employees randomly to check the implementation of system in place. And site inspection. All physical installations at the site are checked against the standards and good environmental practices. Finally, the audit ends with a closing meeting. Audit findings and conclusions are presented by the audit team leader to highlight noteworthy efforts or conformities and areas for improvement or non-conformities. Recommendations should be provided by the audit team, though they are not binding. Next one, the next phase, the final phase in conducting audit, is the post-audit. This is mainly report writing and follow-up after the submission of report. The report should be treated confidential and should be factual with key findings from the audit, notably with sections on noteworthy efforts and areas for improvement. Recommendations for improvement should be included unless specifically requested to be excluded by the client. The environmental audit findings can be categorized into 3 types. First, major non-conformance or non-compliance. Secondly, minor conformance or non-compliance. And thirdly, observation. Major non-conformance or non-compliance is actually due to absence or total breakdown of a required process, while minor conformance or non-compliance due to minor lapse in the system's ability to meet the requirements of the standards, but the overall process still functions as required. Observation will be given due to the areas being in compliance but very close to becoming a non-conformance, or that given additional evidence could transform into a non-conformance. Observations can be looked as accidents waiting to happen and may result in future non-conformity. In summary, an auditor gathers facts, evidence, and draws conclusion, the findings. Next, we will look into the content of the environmental audit report. Audit report inclusive of an introduction, description of the development or activity under audit, description of the environment, description of environmental effects, conduct of the audit, evaluation of the environmental, and finally, the recommendation. Introduction will include the objectives and scope of the environmental audit. Description of the development or activity under audit will include on the size and nature of the development or activity, a description of the relevant management structures and workforce, a summary of all inputs and outputs, ancillary operations such as transport and services, storage and processing operations. Description of the environment, which provide a brief description of the surrounding environment, including the natural and built environment, local ecology, and socio-economic or cultural factors that may have a bearing on the audit. Description of environmental effects, a description on the effect of inefficient resource use and processing, as well environmental impacts arising from waste and emissions. Environmental effects related to the transport, handling, processing, storage, and eventual disposal route to the environment of all relevant inputs and outputs should be presented systematically in a clear and appropriate manner. They should include the environmental effects observed during the course of the audit, the good and bad management practices that were observed during the course of the audit, including the effectiveness of existing environmental mitigation measures. Conduct of the audit refers to those interviewed during the audit, the timing, and audit methodologies used. evaluation of environmental effects, which define the relevant environmental legislation and standards. This should be cross-referenced to the environmental effects identified earlier in description of environmental effects. The environmental effects must be systematically evaluated and ranked in terms of their significance and the assessment of significance justified. Finally, recommendations. The EA, the Environmental Audit Report, must make recommendations to address any significant negative environmental effects and, importantly, allocate and justify priorities for action. Recommendations should include the control and reduction of emissions by improved efficiency management and technical control measures. The emphasis should be on incentive and removing the source of a problem rather than the use of command and control or end-of-pipe technology. Finally, we have come into the benefits of environmental audit. The benefits vary depending on the objectives and scope of the audit. Remember, benefits vary based on the objectives and scope of the audit. Environmental auditing benefits include organizations understand how to meet their legal requirements, meeting specific statutory reporting requirements. Organizations can demonstrate they are environmentally responsible. Organizations can demonstrate their environmental policy is implemented. Understanding environmental interactions of product, services, and activities. Most important is understanding the environmental risks are well managed. Understanding how to develop and implement an ISO 14001 EMS. And finally, improving environmental performance and saving money. In summary, environmental audit is an integral component of the Environmental Management System EMS. Environmental audit process is very important for the legal compliance as per stipulated in Section 33A under the Environmental Quality Act 1974. Environmental protection, effectiveness of EMS, and also to boost the corporate image for an organization. Kindly note that there are 3 phases in conducting an environmental audit, namely pre-audit, audit, and post-audit. Do remember that environmental audit reports are meant for audited organizations to take action to improve themselves and make the necessary changes for the betterment of our environment. With that, thank you and hope to see you again.